Hi guys, welcome back to Amy's Cooking. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. So I have been working on this Reese's chocolate chip cookie recipe for a couple months now. And I will say I'm a little nervous as well as super excited to share it because I guess there are so many different recipes out there and you probably have your favorite. But in the meantime, I'm so thrilled because I worked so hard to fine tune the ingredients and techniques to be able to produce a cookie that is soft, moist, and very tender. But I think most importantly for me is to find a recipe that actually produces a cookie that stays that way for days. And as you can see here, this cookie was baked a week ago and the inside is still very moist and tender, and that's what I really wanted out of this recipe. So I hope that you guys will consider giving it a try, and please make sure that you watch the entire video because I will point out certain areas that are key. So the first part here is pretty much basic, where we're just going to combine the baking soda to the all-purpose flour, give it a quick mix until it's incorporated, and then set that aside. And then in a separate bowl, we'll combine our sugar. So we've got some dark brown sugar. To it, we're going to add a little bit of granulated sugar. The eggs do need to be at room temperature, and I've got 2 large eggs here. The same goes for the butter. It does need to be removed from the refrigerator a couple hours before used. And it needs to be at this consistency that you see here, very soft, but it still holds its shape very nicely. And when you spread the knife across it, it's very easily and nicely spreadable. Now place the sugar and the room temperature butter into a bowl, and we're going to be mixing this. I'm going to be using the paddle attachment in my KitchenAid mixer to mix it. But if you don't, you can use your hand mixer, or you can just mix it by hand as well. We're going to start it on very low speed just so things aren't flying everywhere, and then we will increase it to speed number 2. On the stir mode, you're going to leave it for 30 seconds, and then on speed number 2, you're also going to leave it for about 30 seconds. At that point, increase the speed to number 4, and then on number 4, we will let it cream the butter for 1 whole minute, and then we're going to check on it. So at the 2-minute mark, this is what it looks like. And as you can see here, the mixture is still pretty thick, and it's not quite fluffy, and the color is still pretty brown. So just scrape down the sides of the bowl and add a little bit of salt, and then we're going to continue to beat it on speed number 4 for about 30 seconds. And then increase it to speed number 6, and you're going to let it stay on number 6 until you get to this texture here, which is usually about another minute or minute and 30 seconds. So I know I'm giving a lot of different speeds and a lot of different timing, but I think the key point here is that you want to get the butter and the sugar to this really light and fluffy and pale yellow color. Now, I'm going to show you here. You can see there that was at the 2-minute mark, and the outer side is at the 4-minute mark. So the huge difference in the color and the fluffiness of it. All right, now we're going to add the rest of the other ingredients, which are the vanilla extract and 2 room temperature eggs. When you incorporate the eggs into this mixture, we're just going to mix it for about 5 to 10 seconds. You just want the eggs to mix into it, but you don't want to beat the eggs, and we don't want any kind of fluffiness from the eggs. So just mix it around, and then when everything is scraped down from the side, continue to mix it for another 5 to 10 seconds, and then that's it. Stop. So this is what you're looking for at this stage. It's still very wet and watery, and you can even see some remnants of the eggs in there, and that's quite fine. No problem. Just go ahead and begin adding in the flour. When you add the flour, we're going to add half first and then save the other half. When you are mixing the flour into the butter sugar mixture, just start on low and then increase the speed to number 2, but you're only gonna take about 15 seconds the most, at most, when you're doing this. We do not want to mix it for long because then the gluten will start to develop and you're going to end up with a tough cookie. When I add in the last amount of flour, I did leave some behind, about 2 to 3 tablespoons. So depending on the moisture content that's in your flour, you may or may not use it. So if you feel like it's a little too dry, then don't use that last couple of tablespoons. Otherwise, you can just add the rest of it. So as you can see here, my dough at this point does still look a little wet. So I add in the rest of the flour that I left aside. All right, so once I add in the last bit of flour that I have, the dough is pretty much done. The last step is to add in the chocolate chips and the Reese's, and um, the amount I use in this recipe definitely can be altered. If you want less of it, you can add less. If you want more of it, you can add more. It's not that crucial. It really just depends on your preference. But again, once you mix it, don't mix it for too long. About 5-10 seconds is good enough. Once you see that the chocolate chips and the Reese's are uniformly incorporated into the dough, you're pretty much done. At this point, just use your spatula, kind of move things around. Like I said, make sure everything is uniformly incorporated, and then we can start forming our dough, the dough balls for the cookies. So using 2 spoons, you're just going to scoop up some. And if you want it nice and round, to have those really nice round cookies, then you just kind of shape them into a nice little round ball. If not, then you can just scoop up some and just pop it onto the baking tray. So the baking tray should be lined with aluminum foil, or any parchment paper if you want to use parchment paper. We are going to be baking this right away. And as I mentioned, this is going to give us anywhere between 24 to 30 cookies, depending on how large or how small you bake them. So I usually bake 6 per tray, and I like to press down the top of the ball a little bit, just so that when it's spread, it can spread a lot easier, because I'm using very little baking soda in this recipe. And you can also add a few pieces of the chocolate chip and the Reese's pieces on top, just so that it isn't buried deep in the dough, and when you bake it, you can really see it stand out. We're gonna bake it at 350 degrees on the 3rd rack down from the top, which is usually the middle rack, and we're gonna bake it for about 10 to 12 minutes. As you can see here, when you are maybe 3 to 4 minutes at the end of the baking time, you will notice that the middle has this wet spot. That is what you want to pay attention to, okay? So as soon as you see that wet spot start to disappear, and there's still some moisture in the middle, and it does look like a little uncooked, but trust me, that is actually the perfect time to remove your cookies from the oven, because you're going to continue to leave this cookie on the baking tray, and it's going to continue to bake for the next 5 minutes on that baking tray, and it's going to cool down completely before you remove it onto the baking rack to let it cool down. I promise that is going to make a huge difference in the way your cookie tastes, and how soft and how moist it is, even days and even a week later. So again, just make sure that you follow all the steps in this video, and let me know if you make it how you like it. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. You guys are amazing.